Hey everyone, and welcome back to Small Engine Edge. Today we're going to go over something we've touched on a couple times before, but never really went too far into depth about, and that is insurance coverage. Do you really need insurance coverage if you're a guy running out of your garage or if you're a small business? What if you're just selling mowers on the side? Do you need some sort of coverage? I'm going to tell you exactly why you do need this coverage and what can happen if you don't. And a very good example of something that happened to me that without coverage, I probably wouldn't have a business anymore. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons as we go along if you enjoy the content. Before you get any coverage, you really want to talk to both your insurance guy and an attorney. I'm not an attorney, I'm just giving you my experience with these types of things and what I've learned from starting this business and with some of the problems I've had. So, the first big one is general liability insurance. That's going to cover you if something happens that gets found to be your fault. The way the insurance people explain it to me is you're a business, it's always your fault, right? That's how people think anyway. So it's they have to really prove that it was something egregious or something that should have been taken care of properly that you didn't do. And God forbid that that actually happens and you don't have insurance coverage. Essentially, they're going to go after your personal belongings, your house, your cars, your personal finances, whatever you have. They're going to go after those as opposed to insurance coverage. And that doesn't matter if you're a guy selling mowers on the weekend or you're a guy working out of his garage. It's still all is the same thing. You're technically running as a business yourself if you're doing those types of things. And that's whether you're claiming it on your taxes or not, you're still liable for those things that go out. Insurance coverage is very cheap. It is not an expensive thing, especially compared to the liabilities you could have if something does go wrong. General liability coverage varies quite a bit, and they base it on different things depending on the insurance agent. So talk to them about that and figure out. A lot of them base it just off of sales or on volume. They're going to have some sort of a minimum, but it's not going to be that much money. If you're talking $30 to $50 a month, you can afford to do that if you're doing any sort of volume whatsoever and get yourself covered. You really should, no matter the volume you're doing, though. If a blade flies off, or a piece of metal chunks off of a deck or something like that, those are big things that can cost you big money. And either you pay out of pocket or they're suing you for your personal finances or your personal property. That's not a good position to be in. With commercial liability coverage, you're all completely covered against that. No matter what happens, that's going to be something that the insurance company is going to fight for and not something you have to pay an attorney to go and fight for you to keep your personal finances in order. So that's one of the big ones that I would definitely recommend having. One of the things I like to do is I like to document everything and make sure that the customer knows exactly what you're going to be doing and what you're not going to be doing. There's a lot of things that you can get into the weeds with. If something comes in and it's dangerous, or you don't recommend something after it comes in, that liability could still be on you. So make sure that if there's something that's dangerous and you're not going to fix it and you're not the one who made the adjustment, say the seat switch is disabled or there's a big hole in the deck and a bunch of metal coming off, write that down on the invoice. Make sure that the customer signs off that that is dangerous and that you're not going to cover anything that would maybe happen afterwards, which may or may not happen. But then you're covered. Then you have documentation that you spoke with the customer about it. It wasn't something that you did, not something you're liable for, and it's not something that you missed, which could mean negligence on your part. If you're doing work for people, you want to have coverage for the equipment that's in your care, that's in your possession. Also, coverage for if you're transporting to and from some location. You want to have coverage for that personal property of somebody else's. So you've got to make sure that your insurance coverage lines up with exactly what you're trying to do or exactly what your business focus is, exactly what you're doing. Are you picking up and delivering? If so, you've got to make sure that that personal property coverage for their property on your insurance policy covers all of that to and from. It's it gets kind of tricky sometimes. So you've got to talk to your agent and let them know kind of what your operation is. But you want your customers' equipment covered if you have an accident or even somebody hits you and they don't have coverage while you're out transporting their equipment. If you don't have insurance at all, you're liable for that. And they will sue you. People are sue happy. At some point, it's going to happen if you stay in the business. And if it doesn't, you're a very lucky person. It's happened to me a couple of times. I'll explain one very good example of that here shortly. But so you want your property of somebody else's to be covered. Do you also want your personal property to be covered? Do you want your equipment, your tools, your everything that's in your possession that's not bolted down? Do you want all that to be covered? Well, I sure do. If I have a fire or somebody breaks in and steals a bunch of my stuff, I want to have that covered and I want to get those things back. I don't want to not be able to sleep at night pending theft or whatever the case may be, that I could lose my entire business. It happens all the time. I opt for that coverage, and I recommend that you do too. That way, no matter what happens in any situation, you can continue your business on. I mean, we've got a ton of parts and equipment that all would be lost. That value of that would be lost if we didn't have these coverages. God forbid something happened. And Murphy's Law, something's going to happen at some point, right? So figure out exactly what kind of coverage you need. If you don't have a ton of tools and you're just starting off, maybe you don't need that equipment coverage. Maybe that can be replaced cheap enough if something were to happen, and you don't want to do that right now. But the liability insurance is absolutely critical. It is something that you've got to have in case something happens where a customer gets hurt or something you did causes some sort of injury to either a person or property as it went out. You can and will be sued for something like that, and it can cause many issues or bankruptcy at an extreme. But make sure that's covered. Make sure your customer's equipment is covered to and from and while it's in your possession. And that's going to be your two big ones, right? Your liability on both of those fronts. Figure out whether you want your tools and equipment and everything to be covered. The other big one is if you have people helping you, you want to have workers' compensation insurance. It is the law. You are supposed to have it, but many people don't. Many people will pay cash under the table or whatever the situation is. And then if something happens, you're just completely out. Okay. Let me give you a very good example of that. I had a great friend work for me. He had been a friend for 15 years now. I said had been a friend because of this situation. Okay. We were working on ATVs at the time and UTVs and everything else. Well, there was a go-kart in here. We fixed it up, got everything good to go. Well, we went to start it that next morning on our double checks. It wouldn't start. It needed a new battery. He had already tested it, brought it out, running around with it, and he kept hard stopping. I talked to him about it. I'm like, hey, the thing doesn't even have a roll cage on it. You're going to flip it. Don't do that. Well, a couple days goes by and battery comes in. He hooks the battery up, and the first thing he does is go zipping down the alley back here. Comes back, long story short, flips the thing over, injures his head. So at that point, you've got somebody who's critically injured, a very bad injury that technically, since he was under my pay at that time, since he was on my payroll, he was on the clock, even though it was something that he shouldn't have been doing and he was messing around with, I am still liable for that. Now, if I would not have had workers' compensation insurance, I could not have this business today. There's very little doubt in my mind that if I wouldn't have had workers' comp, that could have bankrupted me. Both the business, my personal finances, my house, everything that I own. People will sue you. It doesn't matter if they're your friends or not. That's something that will happen if something crazy happens. 100% his fault that happened. He should not have been doing that. I should have written him up at the time when it happened. Not sure that would have changed anything or not, because I was pretty hard on him when it happened originally. And I saw the danger in that. I see a lot of the dangers and things because I've seen some crazy stuff in my lifetime. I can tell you that. So I'm always trying to look on the safety side of different things to try to prevent those things from happening. I tried here, and I didn't even notice he was going up and down the hallway until I was with the customer and they're yelling over the radio that something bad had happened. Very bad situation. Insurance company ended up paying out quite a large sum to him, covering all the medical bills and stuff. But something like that, with the amount of money that costs, that definitely would have, I mean, I would have never recovered from it. It just, so make sure that you have, whether they're your friends or not, it doesn't matter. Again, if somebody goes through something that is traumatic like that, if somebody goes through something that is taking money out of their pocket, or that it's causing them pain, that you're gonna be liable for that, whether you have insurance or not. So you've got to cover yourself. You've got to make sure that no matter the situation, that your interests are covered, whether it be with your employees or customers' equipment, or you doing something and causing personal property damage or injury. If you're not covered, crazy things happen every day. If you're not covered, that's just going to take you down the wrong path, and it's not going to be good for you at all. Somebody that I never thought would sue me, somebody that I thought workers' comp and our insurance could take care of that without getting attorneys and stuff involved, which gets real messy real quick, but it wasn't the case. Whether it costs you a little bit of money now or not, that's something that's going to save you a lot of worry. It's going to save you a lot of exposure as far as liability goes, and it's going to let you sleep at night once you have many other things on your plate. I talk to your insurance agent, talk to your attorney or your business advisors, talk to these people and figure out exactly what coverage for your business that you're going to need to stay protected, because otherwise everything you're doing is for naught. You can learn it, you can grow a huge business, you can get so far in it, and then everything can be taken away for one minor mistake. And again, whether it's your fault or not, whether it's something you did or not, ultimately, since you're a business, as my insurance guy explains it, it doesn't matter. You're still at fault. You're the business. You've got to protect yourself. Otherwise, you've got to defend yourself. Paying to defend yourself can be just as much as the payout for the whatever happened. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, guys, if you enjoy the content. Thanks for watching. Keep dreaming big. Keep going far. Continue to grow your business and your knowledge base on all of this to protect yourself and make sure that what you're building is going to be there in the future.